Tim, what's your topic?
I know.
So taking a real kind of sharp turn here. This is a much more serious topic than I normally do.
Sure.
I want to talk about suicide.
Okay.
It's a crazy thing. This comes from somewhere.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Are you thinking about suicide?
No.
Just making sure.
Never.
If anybody
Are you
is
kidding
thinking
me?
about suicide, Kevin, I want to put up the suicide prevention hotlines, please.
Yep.
If you can put those up for me, make a thing here for the U.S. and
We have that link to
Canada.
the forum, right? The thread.
Yeah, I put up.
Time.
Yeah, that's right. I put
That's
up a
probably a
thread
good
about
thing
that.
to
We'll
put
put that
up
in the
there.
description. How about
Yeah.
that? Okay.
But no, it's just something I've been thinking about recently because I've seen, there's the Kind of Funny Facebook group.
Sure.
And every once in a while, somebody will say something that I read and I'm a little bit like, this person seems like they need someone to talk to them or, whatever. And I feel like in the last year, it's gotten a bit more prevalent. And I'm like, something about that really doesn't sit right with me because I'm like, what do I do? At what point is it acceptable to kind of step in and like kind of be the, hey, I'm here for you. And at what point do you kind of need to just let other people get involved? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, who's going to call the cops when there's a fire, right? And if you just expect that someone else is going to call, maybe no one does. But it's like, I'm rambling now, but this all comes from a dream that I had a couple days ago that is something, it was like a deja vu thing where like it's an experience I've had, but there's been a couple times in my life where it's just come back in a dream. And what happened was it was maybe 10 years ago, if my math's right. And my mom and dad just got in a huge fight, like one of the worst fights they ever got in. And then I walked outside and I forgot what I was doing. But my dad like stormed out and like he came over to me and he was like yelling. He was super upset and he was kind of like looking to me to like be on his side.
Sure.
And I wasn't at all.
Oh wow. Okay, that's right.
And I was just like, I don't even remember the context of the fight at all. But I was very much just
Pineapple on pizza?
like you need to stop treating her that way. Like this isn't okay. No, I'm done. And I remember him just being like just looking at me and just having this look where he was just like over it. Totally over it and just like, you know what? Like, fuck, I don't have you. I don't need this. My dad was going through a lot of rough shit. Like, his whole life was rough. But, like, specifically around this time, didn't have much going for him and had a lot of problems with things. And it hit a point where I saw a look at him where it was like he really had nothing left. And he looked at me and he was like, I'm just going to go walk to Bart. And he started walking towards the BART station. And as he was walking away, I was super pissed because I was like,
how old are you, roughly?
20.
Oh, wow.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess 7 years ago. And I remember him just walking away, and I just watched him walk away, and I was so angry because of this fight and this whole situation in my house and like what it meant for my mom having to deal with all this and just everything, right? And then I went back and I laid down on my bed, and I just remember having like a weird flashback to a couple weeks ago where my dad was telling me that he read this story about this guy that killed himself at BART. And all of a sudden I just felt like paralyzed with just like fear and guilt and just like responsibility for the whole situation. And it was weird because I didn't know what to do. And like he didn't have a cell phone. There was no way to contact him. But in my head, I started going worst case scenario of like my dad is about to go kill himself. Yeah. Like he's going to the train and he's going to jump in front of a fucking train. And I started trying to wrap my head around all of it. And I remember I ended up driving to BART and I couldn't find him. And I was like, all right, well, at least he's not here, And I didn't see him that night. He didn't come home. And he ended up coming home the next day, which obviously didn't sleep that night. It was a lot. But that experience has made me feel a way that I've never, ever felt again in my life because it's someone so close to me. And I legitimately thought he was going to do that. And I just remember what it did to me. And there's been certain times, I don't know what the trigger is, but there's been something since then where every once in a while I have this dream where it's just the situation happening. I'm just kind of reliving it again. And it happened like a week ago. And I was like, whoa, it was just so fucking weird that happened. And I don't know. I don't really know what exactly the topic is.
You talked to your dad?
My dad's dead now. Not from suicide.
Yeah,
but
yeah, okay.
Did you talk to him about that ever?
After? Yeah, I did.
A little bit.
And he answered in a way that was like kind of scary, like in a way that wasn't saying that he wasn't going to do it.
Right.
Like I do kind of think that he at least had some intention at some point during that walk. And I think the walk cooled him down. It's a long walk.
Yeah. Well, also not exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Don't,
I
don't
remember,
live next to a BART station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him walking home the next day though, and like I went and I talked to him, and it wasn't even like a oh, big hug, like I love you, I'm so happy you're okay thing. It was kind of like hey man, I'm really scared about this. Like this isn't okay. I don't even know how to deal with it or handle it, you know. And I remember me and him then kind of went to lunch and just like talked it all out. And like it was just weird because like he was very angry and he really felt like he just had nothing left at that point. And you know, life had a lot of things go wrong in it, and it led him to where he was at. And selfishly, the night before that, when I was just in bed thinking about it all, I just remember thinking like how could he feel that he has nothing to live for? Like he has me and my brother and my mom at the very least, you know? And like I was making it all about me. And there was something about that that's what I keep thinking about. And years later, I'm still thinking about it, of just like how weirdly selfish, but also just real it is, that it's like all life is a bunch of relationships with people. And if you kind of don't value a relationship with somebody as a reason to keep going, like at what point do you give up? And should you ever give up? And I don't know, like that's the thing, is when I then see these posts on Facebook, it scares me. I get a weird fear because it reminds me of that night, not knowing what's going to happen and not knowing what I even could do.
Well, first off, I don't think you should ever give up. That's my thing. Is like, and now, granted, I've never had anything in my life that's been nearly what you're talking about, as far as like that level of emotional depth in that place. Life can get bad sometimes, but inevitably, my experience has always been the worse that it's gotten, the eventually you get through that, and there will be something on the other side that's better. But it's difficult because life, a lot of people like to think of life as this happy-go-lucky adventure that we're all on together, and isn't it, ooh, sunshine and rainbows. But in reality, it's usually a series of quasi-traumatic shit, one after the other, until you eventually find yourself in the situation where maybe you do have a family, but you haven't dealt with all of that stuff, all that baggage that's come along with it, or you hit your 20s or you hit your 30s, and your life is not necessarily how you thought it was going to be. And we're really shitty as a society, especially in the United States for some reason, at arming people with the tools they need to mentally deal with the stresses of everyday life. And I always talk about this as far as just living in this specific area where we are fucking packed in next to each other. And there is a huge disparity of people who are not doing so well and fucking millionaires in this city, right? So like, a person can go crazy comparing themselves to everyone around you, especially in San Francisco, where you're like, we were just talking earlier about people who are buying $15-20 million penthouses, and I'm like, I'm still wrapping my head around the rent that I got to pay every month, you know?
Yeah. And it's block to block, like around the corner. It's people.
Social media makes it worse.
And social media makes
no one likes my comments. Like these things have these subliminal effects.
Oh my god! Like somebody put it well a long time, not a few years ago now. Put it to me in a way that really fucking framed it in an awesome sense of that. Everyone's Facebook and Twitter and Instagram is their highlight reel. You don't see them struggle usually. You don't see the photos of them just sitting there on a Friday night, not with their friends. It's, I'm out doing this, I'm out doing that. We're traveling the world. We're filming this movie, whatever the fuck we're doing.
Oh, and by the way, but when you do see those, what's the reaction, right? When you do see someone on social media, it's like, I'm having a bad time. Like it's a very polarized reaction, right? It's like,
depends who you are and who your friends are.
It's true, but like I would have to imagine that more often than not, it's frowned upon to share that level of information with people, right? Like saying, "Oh, I'm having a bad time. I need support right now." We don't promote that.
We don't promote it, sure, but I think Facebook you see more of it.
I mean, I feel like
Facebook, yes,
but I feel like we're moving towards a place where
that's what I'm saying. But it's still very stigmatized to be able to share that level of vulnerability with society, right? Especially what you're talking about. What you're talking about as far as the highlight reel is, you want all of these things are geared toward telling everyone, look how great amazing things are and amazing my life is, right? It's this very, very superficial, vain thing that we all choose to engage with because it helps our ego, right? It helps us get through whatever the fucking next challenge or hurdle is going to be in our lives. What we don't realize is, what's that?
Remembering the good times.
Exactly. What we don't realize is that the more important shit is being there for each other when the bad times are happening, right?
Sure.
That we say a true test of a good relationship or good, you know, and I look at this the same way with me and my wife, is not when things are going well, or the true test of a person's character is not when shit's going well, but when bad things happen, how strong can that relationship be, right?
Yeah.
And I always see this a lot of times with young people, and you see it a lot of times when you're in your 20s, when you think you have these amazing friends for life, and then real shit happens and it breaks apart because these were just self-serving friendships that were based on, I don't know, you were in this class together, or you used to do this drug together,
You're
or
in the
you
same
used to
headspace
drink
for this
together.
thing.
Right.
Yeah, and you took it as something different.
Right, but I think that people more often than not, they just don't, they either don't have the support group or they don't have the tools to really understand what that real relationship is that they're trying to build with people. And I didn't have those until I met someone that wanted to figure that out with me, which is my wife. You know, I've been together with her for 10 years, and I didn't realize how really undermanned I was, or like didn't have the tools to deal with that level of relationship until I found someone who was like, hey, not to point out both of our flaws here, but
you need to.
We have to talk about these things. We got to bring this. We got to put all this stuff on the table and figure it out. And it's a very dangerous thing because we don't have a reward system for that in society. We have a reward system for, hey, you got a great pic on Instagram, right? We don't really have a built-in reward system for, hey, I'm working on this thing that I find is a deficiency in itself. Maybe it's my body, maybe it's my brain. I don't know what's going on, but I'm working on that. I'm going to share that with you guys so that other people who might have that problem can rally behind it. But that's still so stigmatized. You know, it's unfortunate that even you saying the words like suicide triggers something in me thinking, oh, well, that's, and I don't mean this, but my first reaction is like, oh, that's something that I'll never have to deal with. Like, but maybe I don't know, maybe I'll be at that place one day. Hopefully I won't, and hopefully no one else that we know is, but it's, the more we talk about it, the better it gets, and the more you realize that you're right. Like everyone, myself included, has really bad days. Some people have really dark days, and it's unfortunate. And I'm very fortunate so that I've had a support structure that's gotten me to this point where I've never felt that way. But that's not to discount or discredit people that are in that area, because not everyone's equal. I don't have a point for this statement. I just wanted to ramble.
But I think and there's studies and research recently that shows that aging with happiness is relationship dependent.
Interesting.
Right. So what happens, I think, is we don't really get the tools to know how to deal with this stuff socially, right? We're in competitive environments most of the time, right? That's changing in schools today, where everyone's a winner, which that's another issue.
That's an issue, yeah.
But it's like, no.
Well, it's everything but everything in moderation, right? Like you can't take it that far to the extreme, otherwise you're not giving people the real tools they need to deal with society.
But so when you look at it, like, I think of people I know, I've known a number of people that committed suicide, and I've been close to a number of people, and I've stopped a few people. And some of it was like, I'll just start getting these really, I'm not claiming anything special here, but I'll start getting these, like, based on that last conversation, I'll get these connected dots, and it's 2 a.m. and I'll call somebody.
You get a weird vibe, yeah.
And it's right on the verge, man. Like, they're ready to do it. And he'd be like, I can't believe you called. And I was like, well, I was just thinking about that thing, and I was thinking we kind of had some tension, but it's really okay, Like, I just had this feeling like somehow something was said, sunk deeper, whatever. And those, like, I'd say trust that gut. Right? Like, approach it gently. Like, hey, you're not thinking about killing yourself, are you?
Right.
Like, approach it gently.
Kick in the door,
but
and
trust that
Netflix.
gut. I mean, we live in a universe we understand very little, right? Your greatest neuroscientists on the planet will tell you how little we understand about the human brain. We're learning a lot quickly. We understand very little, right? There's all kinds of phenomena we can't explain. And we learn things every new. But yet, we want to think that someone has all the answers for humans, and it isn't there, right? Like, maybe in 100 years from now, we have a lot more answers, but we don't have them yet. So when you go, what's a couple of the common things? We're social creatures. We're like dogs. And dogs alone, they don't age well, right? And neither do people, right? My whole family's dead. Like, I watched this in my own family from relatively close zone. And so we have to learn how to deal with these discomforts in relationships so we can work them out to be better people. Really, that's it, right? Personal evolution comes from that. And if we're not given that tool, then what happens is we start isolating ourselves more. I know so many people over time that I grew up around, whatever, and they're like, I just don't want to, my own mother, the relationships never work. I'm just going to be alone.
Right.
And you're like, that's the worst decision you can make in your life, because then
it's an easy short-term gain for a long-term deficit.
It's not even a Band-Aid. It's an avoidance.
Yeah.
It's like not paying taxes. It's going to come back at you.
It's what builds into the saying, if you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Where it's like, you can, but it's really, really hard.
And working out with people is tough. Like, working your stuff out with people. I mean,
because working your stuff out with people means that in reality, you have to work shit out in yourself.
That's the key.
And that's the problem, is a lot of people, and this is the thing I run into, I see it in my relationship sometimes with some people, members of my family, friends, where I'm like, you're saying things, you're venting to me, but what you're not realizing is all the things you have, all the problems you see in the world around you are actually coming from you. Like, you are not, and maybe you do subconsciously realize that, but take these two things, right? I can change what Greg's doing, or I can change how I'm reacting to what Greg's doing, right? It's actually probably easier for me, at least mentally, to be like, I'm going to tell Greg I don't like what he's doing. But in reality, it's really fucking hard to change yourself.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to change yourself because you have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
You can't really see, and that's like, it's easier for me to see the like Greg's deficits. Not that you have many. The hair is fantastic. I'm loving it today.
Like now that I've got it like gelled down a bit, I like it more.
like
but
it?
I don't know. I don't know what this
Right.
hair
But I always say, I wish I could make my friends' decisions for them, right?
Yeah.
If my friends would just let me make their decisions for them, I'm like, your lives would be awesome because I have that outside perspective.
Yeah.
It's so much fucking harder to have that perspective of yourself, right? And unless you have someone in your life that's being 100% honest with you, and honesty sucks because what honesty means is you got to take your ego and smash it down because that ego is that fucking shield we put up to deal with all these things in the world. You got to take that and you got to throw it out, or at least leave it outside when you go to have these conversations.
That shit's so hard, and it's especially crazy to stop and think.
Very hard,
think
especially
back.
for us. We're all public people, right? Our ego is this thing that we're building ourselves up on, and we have to sometimes let it go.
This is
Sorry to interrupt you, Tim.
Thanks for watching. You can. Oh, no, that's the wrong hand. Thanks for watching. You can click here to subscribe. You can click here to go to Patreon. You can click here to watch something Kevin wants you to watch, and then do something. What's this one? I don't remember.
Behind the chair. You're behind the chair.
It's a face.
People can't see where you're clicking.
Click on my face. To subscribe. I already said subscribe.
Oh, I don't know.
Click on the
Just
water
there's
bottle.
things here. Click on
If you
them.
want to go to the Easter egg website. Spoilers. It's just going to be a
I
subscribe.
can't even hear him.